Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kauschi. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis, and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Now, today on Future Affairs, we're taking a look at economic migration and brain drain. So brain drain in Malaysia is a crucial issue, and if left unchecked, continuous loss of intellectual capital and skilled talent will eventually hamper our economic growth. While the nation seeks to achieve 35% skilled workforce target by 2020, we have also lost some of our most talented human capital overseas. In fact, last year, the government put Malaysia's brain drain rate at 5.5% of the total population, or about 1.86 million Malaysians, and that is notably higher than the 3.3% global average. Now, of these 1.86 million, 1.13 million were working in Singapore. In fact, the number of Malaysians looking for jobs in Singapore has risen a whopping 62% in the first quarter of 2024 compared with the previous corresponding period. DOSM in 2022 also found that about two-thirds of Malaysians living and working in Singapore earn a gross salary of anywhere between Singapore dollars 1,500, which is equivalent to more than 5,000 ringgit, to even Singapore $3,599, which is around 12,000 ringgit Malaysia. And about three-quarters of them were skilled or semi-skilled, with the highest earners drawing a gross monthly salary of 18,000 Singapore dollars, which is equivalent to 62,000 Malaysian ringgit and above. So, in the meanwhile, the government has also launched initiatives, of course, to address the problem, including Talent Crawl Group under the Ministry of Human Resources, which states they have assisted in over 6,000 professionals returning to Malaysia since being established in 2011. Indonesia, another regional neighbor with similar brain drain concerns, just last week proposed dual citizenship for former Indonesian nationals living overseas, citing the urgent need for skills and talents. Niaga Spotlight today, we delve deeper into this issue together with possible strategic solutions to address brain drain effectively and immediately. Bong Siu Yong, Director with Ambition Malaysia, joins me now online. Hi, Siu Yong. Thank you so much for joining us here on Niaga Spotlight. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Tamina.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us for this really timely discussion, Siu Yong, on economic migration as well as brain drain. So I think it's become quite clear from all the news reports that have been coming out that low wages locally and, of course, higher salaries abroad is what's looking so attractive these days to a lot of Malaysian talent, right? So looking at this, are there any initiatives in your viewpoint that have been undertaken, which both the government and the private sector are shown to be doing their best, at least, to try and close this brain drain gap?
Thank you very much for the questions, Tamina. I think that so far I've been observing that our governments and also private sectors have been working together to undertake various initiatives to address them. But however, there are some gaps I personally think that we still can work on and also need a little bit of attention to ensure that we are tackling the brain drain issue more effectively. One, I think that the first point that we need to really look into is actually creating a much more stronger ecosystem to ensure that we are creating a competitive economic environment which allow encouragement to more innovations, R&D, and support entrepreneurs in particular. These could be including such as providing resources, funding, and mentorship for startup and SME business in particular. Enhancing, another example that we can actually further enhance is actually collaborations between education institute and also industry to ensure that graduates have the skill which are in demand from the industry. I think that based on the observations, some government agency had in fact implemented such a very good initiative such as MEMDAC have been putting a lot of focus on developments on digital talent, and we should encourage more government agency and also private sector to work together to scale up this initiative in a much more larger scale. And also private sector roles. Company must offer much more competitive compensations to better reflect the current economy and also the cost of living that the community is actually facing right now. this is not just about matching salary, but also providing a much more comprehensive benefit package. We are seeing more MNC and also enterprise organizations who are continuously improving this area, and we hope to see more alignment from the SME and others industry too. I think their organization need to start to see talent as the main asset of the organization to support the growth and sustainability of the organization instead of just looking at it immediately on a cost perspective.
Absolutely. So, Young, I hear you clearly on a couple of those issues that you have raised. And I really want to zoom in on the fact that you talked about employee packages having to go beyond just what you are earning as your salary. When you speak about the comprehensive package, let's look at the fact that a lot of Malaysians actually, in fact, has gone up to more than 62% in the first quarter of 2024 compared with the same period in 2023. And these are Malaysians looking for jobs in Singapore. So it does seem like a competitive pay package in particular is what is most likely attracting them. Any thoughts on this?
I think that when we look at it, especially on neighboring country like Singapore, I think that currency is always fluctuating. I think that I've been in the HR consulting and also career advisor for such a long time. I always say that it's very important to actually evaluate your career in the long term instead of just looking at the short term part of it. So definitely, I think that just looking at the package part of it is a very important factor, but you also need to look at it what could be your career growth in the long term. Because if let's say look at it, right, so we are looking into, there are different level of skill or workforce that we are talking about, semi-skilled and low-skilled workers. So a lot of time that we talk about brain issue, a lot of them is actually more toward a professional and professional level, which is semi-skilled and above, that we are facing right now, in particular in a certain skill, niche skill area, for example, digital area in specific. So it's very important to look at it when you want to make a career move part of it. It's very important just look beyond in terms of the package. It also collectively, what's the quality of life that you're looking at? What are the career progression? Because eventually when you don't look at it as a long-term part of it, when you want to move on to the next step, you are going back to the basic again. So you are not seeing yourself actually growing when you accumulate your experience, but you are seeing that you are stagnant within a certain area of the skill and also a level of the career that you are in. So I think that is always when I'm actually talking to a lot of talent, it's really about prioritizing. What are you looking at? What are these moves actually looking at? Yes, everyone, money can never be enough. Okay, I think that's very important. So what is the priority that you're looking at? It could be technically when you want to move to abroad, be it Singapore or others country which their currency is much more higher. I think it's very important to look at the timeline that you're looking at. So I want to relocate, I want to migrate to others country. I give myself a 12 month to 24 months. What are the skill? What are the area that I could actually further improve and also move up the ladder to make sure that my value and also my capabilities and competency as being built in the long term instead of staying stagnant.
Exactly. And also the fact that, young adults between 25 to 34 are actually the highest proportion of Malaysians migrating, economically speaking, to Singapore. And our DOSM statistics also show us that basically most of the Malaysians going to be at Singapore or even neighboring Brunei, they're either skilled or semi-skilled. But on the topic of professionals, Yu Yong, what you were mentioning, let me now refer to, of course, Talent Core's initiative, which is the Returning Expert Program, and it offers financial incentives to encourage Malaysian professionals abroad to basically return back home. In your viewpoint, is this an effective and, more importantly, a fair long-term solution, given that Malaysian professionals who then choose to stay on in Malaysia are not eligible for such incentives? Is this actually telling us, in a sense, it's better perhaps for younger professionals to have a jaunt or a stint overseas and then perhaps come back under such programs? What's the general view on this?
I think that this is very debatable. I think the REP program is not a new program. It has been launched very, very long time, just kind of relaunching it recently. I think it's an effective way, based on my observations and based on my experience, it's an effective way to bring in talent back home because when I've been personally working with a lot of returning Malaysians, bringing that back home to actually from a diverse perspective, from a different background, so to actually come back to Malaysia to continue their career aspirations. I think that this is a very good incentive in terms of financial and also a non-financial advantage that have been given. So, with regard to the disparity issue, I do agree that the program could be potentially perceived create an unfairness among professionals who stay in Malaysia and did not receive similar incentive. However, every program when they are developed, they are with a specific objective. So perhaps that in the future, when there are some program that running by government agency or Talent Corp itself, that we could look into a much more broader incentive, which could be potentially include local talent, because this collectively will be able to allow us to actually capitalize and also retain local talent to stay within the home country, and also brought back those returning Malaysians that who want to come back home for good, because both returning and local professional they are both equivalent important and also can contribute significantly to our economic growth.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of economic growth, that brings me to another very interesting arena. Now, while, of course, brain drain is currently definitely in the headlines, given, of course, the recent statistics and the fall in the ringgit, etc. But however, is Malaysia's brain drain rate, because it's much higher than the global average, are we also seeing some of the benefits that come because of such economic migration? Example, greater remittances, which is also enjoyed by other source countries. Our neighbor Philippines is a fantastic example. India, Mexico, globally are other great examples. Really high rates of economic migration, but of course, it is absolutely beneficial to those domestic economies because of remittances. Are we seeing that here too?
I think that countries like Philippines, India, or even Mexico, they have long history of significant immigrations, and their economy have come to rely very heavily on remittance to a certain extent. However, in Malaysia cases, the situation is somewhat different. As I mentioned, while remittance from Malaysian working abroad do contribute to the economy, but the scale and impact are not so profound as compared to those countries, because there are several reasons. The skill, as I mentioned, the first thing is really about the skill part of it. The skill that we are actually seeing that is actually not as heavy as compared to Mexico, Philippines, and also the other things, the profile on the immigrants. So many Malaysians, as I mentioned earlier on, who immigrate are highly skilled professional, while their remittance are often substantial, that they may not necessarily send money back in regular or at the same amount of practice as compared to the other countries that have take on a less skilled job abroad. And the other things will be cultural differences in the practice of sending money home, influenced by family structure and also expectations part of it. I think that given these factors, Malaysia does not experience in the same level of benefits of remittance as country like Philippines, India. Instead, the loss of our highly skilled professional often result in greater opportunity cost in terms of losing potential domestic innovations, R&D, and productivity capability.
Absolutely. So much of food for thought there. And I think you really zoned in on what is the true issue here, Siu Young. I mean, it's fantastic. We've got all these wonderfully qualified and talented professionals. But the fact of the matter is, a highly talented professional, be they a Malaysian man or a Malaysian woman, when they are going or economically migrating overseas, be that where it may, Singapore or even further afield, right? UK, US, etc., they are likely to migrate one shot with at least their whole direct family. So that definitely puts a damper on what we will get back as remittances. Right. So moving along into another area, Suyang. Now, about 60% of the Malaysians who do work in Singapore, they're categorized as semi-skilled and low-skilled workers. So looking at it big picture wise, Could this large talent pool of semi and low skilled workers be utilized to help the Malaysian economy break away from our current middle income trap that we do seem to be in?
I think that this is very important, as I mentioned earlier. Organizations need to start to look at talent as an asset instead of the cost, because there are a lot of limitations. I just recently heard from a radio station saying that there's one manager that currently working at the manager level in Malaysia itself, earning around 5 to 6,000 a monthly salary, and decided to actually move to Singapore for a retail job around 5,000 Singapore dollar. So I think that is a perspective that people need to understand. There is a reason why our semi-skilled and low-skilled workers decided to move on, because that go back to the engagement that employers is actually working on the creating the visibility and career aspirations for our employees currently, and also talent in the market. So I think that one thing that I really emphasizing is actually to make sure that the employers start to really make sure that they actually giving the platform to enhance skill developments and training, because that's very important to actually create the platform for the employees to let them know that they are able to actually upskill and reskill. For example, the generative AI capabilities that they can help to actually boost their productivity and employability by upskilling these workers, by upskilling this workforce that actually create their mindset to have a growth mindset that actually want to actually put in the work. I actually can master my craft instead of looking at the short-term priority, because like what you mentioned, the mid-range on the peak workforce that we're looking at, these are the core workforce generations that they are going to be a backbone on our economy later on. And then currently we are actually at the most unique workforce in that generation right now, where we have around 5 generations that work together currently. So there are a lot of challenges to make sure that engagement, to have that create the awareness part of it. So, and then the other things will be to really kind of create a more job opportunity by government and private sector. We start to see a lot of in particular, for example, in digital space, we start to see a lot of classic role no longer available. So it's very important to create more opportunity, more new role. Beside those initiatives, they are very important to facilitate re-entry and integrations program. For example, to encourage, especially we talk about women workforce. There are a lot of working parents, there are a lot of married couple, especially from the woman perspective. We are caregiver, we are mother, we're taking a lot of responsibility along the journey. So sometimes because of the responsibility and the role that we are playing, we actually need to actually stop from working. So, and then there are a lot of times that if let's say we want to continue, there could be a shortcut because of the currency part of it. We'll move into the neighboring country to make sure that we actually able to support the family, because the entry barrier could be slightly lower. So I think that to have more reintegrations program, for example, like Back to Work, I think that Talent Corp have been running a lot of good program, Women Industry Network, Back to Work program, and even Silver Workforce re-entering the workforce program. So I think that is very important to count, beside just looking at the core area, that we could be potentially expanded, and also giving the options for the employees to actually look at it to have a much more better options in terms of employability in the market.
That's right. Thanks very much for the insights so far, Siew Yong. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with Niaga Spotlight. Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight. Still with me, Tamina Kazji, and of course, Bong Siu Yong, who is director with Ambition Malaysia, is joining me today to discuss economic migration and brain drain. Siu Yong, so as we were on the discussion earlier, let's now move into taking a slightly different perspective to brain drain. There is also an idea or a concept about reframing it as brain circulation. Now, in the sense that Malaysians abroad will eventually return home and contribute, of course, to the domestic economy. To what extent do you feel this statement holds true, especially for Malaysians who are earning the most out of their so-called productive years abroad and overseas?
Thank you very much. I think that I really like the idea of brain circulations. I think that, like I mentioned earlier on, there are several reasons why we are losing, especially on those that high skill professional, because Malaysian working abroad often acquire advanced skill, which is a very neat skill with an international experience exposed to new technology and business practices. When they return, they potentially can transfer all this knowledge about the international exposure to the local economy, potentially driving innovations and productivity. So they also able to bring back their network established toward abroad to facilitate international collaboration, investment, or even market access for Malaysian businesses. So we are seeing, for example, like what we mentioned earlier on, we are seeing a lot of programs to bring them back to Malaysia, like REP program. So, but I think that there are a lot of challenges when I work with these returning Malaysians. So, because when we actually seeing it, there are a lot of high earners. Then we want to come back. They are seeing challenges in terms of matching their overseas income to Malaysia. So this could be one of the reasons why there is a significant barrier for them to come back, particularly for those that in their peak earning years. So what I normally do is actually to kind of facilitate the conversation. Is really talking about when you decided to come back. I think it's very important to kind of localize the context. So when they
Mhm.
actually set the expectation in terms of what they are looking at when they want to come back, because there's reason that when they want to come back, they kind of make it a lot of time that we see that is due to personal reason and also career advancement opportunities. So there are a lot of time when we actually work with them. So we want to set the expectations very clearly. So we want to make sure that the alignment in terms of how they want to come back in terms of calibrations, and also there are a lot of opportunity that we talk about what could be the perceptions, what could be the reality when they come back into the industry part of it. And also when we are seeing there are certain area within the industry itself, we are also seeing a lot of structure barriers and also unconscious bias. So there are a lot of local industry, they are actually not ready to absorb the returning talent because there are a lot of area that they may not necessarily can utilize the skill and experience of returning. So that's very important to kind of calibrate that expectations. If let's say we are able to actually address the certain industry needs. So because in particular within the area that I'm focusing on, for example, in digital and others core senior leadership area, I do believe that if let's say we manage well, the brain circulations can have a positive impact to our economy because that will allow a lot of innovations and also research and collaborations with the exposure that they bring back from the international market. So returning bring a wealth of experience and global perspective that can drive progress in various sectors. So the extent to which the brain circulation benefits Malaysia largely depends on um, the respective party ability to actually create an environment that matches or exceed the opportunity and conditions available abroad.
Sure. Now, of course, there is, of course, no place like home at the end of the day. So, in your perspective,
True.
Suyong, should returning professionals, especially those who are highly skilled, also then invest in themselves via personal and professional development? Because basically, that could help to make them more appealing to larger MNCs or even the localized ones, which are then looking for more talent.
Definitely. I think there are a lot of times that when we talk to them, we always have that understanding that I think that a lot of them, when they decided to come back for good, like there's home is where the heart is, right? So there are a lot of times when they come back, they know exactly what is the movement of the country right now we are at. They know exactly what is the government initiative in place. So the whole intention is really about that. I hope I can come back to contribute to the economic growth. I think that is something that's very heartwarming to hear. So in a way, will be kind of, they know exactly what kind of value they can bring back. They know exactly what could be the industry that they can actually contribute. I think that with a lot of collaborations between governments and also private sectors, that could be some things that we can work together.
Absolutely. And any quick thoughts, though, Soo Yong, on the fact that looking at structural encouragement, Indonesia, now just neighbor, has recently proposed the idea of dual citizenship in a bid to retain local talent and skills, which led to calls to basically adopt the same in Malaysia. To what extent could such a move potentially help to drive economic growth and innovation within Malaysia? And would it also be something that would then bring back as well a lot more Malaysian women, because as we know, there are the citizenship struggle issues that are also impacting many Malaysian women with families that are from overseas have not been able to come back due to structural barriers.
I think that this is a very, very interesting question. I think the concept of dual citizenship as proposed by Indonesia and also the potential adoption in Malaysia is indeed a very thought-provoking topic. However, if let's look at it, the dual citizenship technically is a very straightforward retention strategy, because it allows flexibility for professionals, knowing that they are able to work abroad without severing their ties to their own local countries, and also help them to actually return home periodically and permanently without losing the benefits on their host country citizenship. So, and also it also helped to attract more investment, because a lot of dual citizenship, let's say you see that the neighboring country or other countries actually practicing, is actually the citizens are actually more inclined to invest in the country, knowing that they can easily return and benefits from their investment without any bureaucratic hurdles. So I think that the visibility for Malaysia itself, I think that is something that worth considering. However, there are a lot of implications that, because this is a big move, this is a major move. So there are a lot of legal and constitutional considerations with the current legal framework that does not permit dual citizenship. Adopting such a big policy will require significant legal and constitutional change, which could be much more complex and time-consuming. And also the visibility on this move could also depend on public and also political support. So it's very important to gauge that the sentiment of Malaysians toward the dual citizenship to ensure the broader acceptance. And also I think that it's always a major concern about national security and loyalty, to make sure that such as voting right,
Yes, absolutely. So Young, thank you very much for those insights. I think you've made some extremely pertinent points. But of course, on the flip side, there's also double tax agreements, extra income. So definitely something worth examining. I absolutely appreciate you joining us here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. We will see you next Friday with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.